Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon
Hello.
for you who are in Brazil and abroad in Europe. And today we are back again this week after 2 weeks without any lecture to continue our series of lectures and interviews on Irish studies, particularly on migration, in contemporary Irish films and plays. And today, I have to say that we have counted on many distinguished professors of Irish literature who have accepted our invitation to share their experiences with us, and we have had great moments together here in this virtual universe, virtual space, and we all have learned a lot. At this stage, it's sad when we realize how the pandemic has taken so many people from us. It's sad when you see that after almost 18 months, we are still stuck without any solution for the virus. It is sad when we see people are still confined in their homes, scared of going out and be contaminated. It's sad when we see universities, schools, bars, restaurants, sporting clubs, stores, beaches, and other spaces closed. It's sad when we see time passing by and we have no idea when we'll still embrace our acquaintances, students, colleagues, friends. It's sad when we know we are not able to travel and visit the countries we like most. It's in response to this imposed curfew, we have found this intellectual and safe space to explore changes in our working life and subsequently to engender new perspectives of teaching and learning. It's free of coronavirus and the collective effort to spread a positive virus, the virus of knowledge, has been a relief to the crisis we are living. This virtual reality has helped us to communicate remotely and cope with isolation and loneliness, helping our psychological as well as our physical well being. The preparations for working in a virtual environment relied on technology to enable online social interactions, demanded the help of many researchers. I'm always thankful to them and to the guest speakers. Without their support, we could not articulate these remote encounters. And today, we account on the presence of a colleague, of a friend who also develops research on Irish studies. She has been in Brazil many times, lecturing at USP, University of São Paulo, Federal University of Bahia, Floripa, etc. Her coming to Brazil helped us to share great times together in both places, São Paulo and Bahia, Salvador. I'm also very thankful to her for the invitations to lecture at the University of Valenciennes in Valenciennes, France. I was there 3 times. The second one, I stayed longer when I gave lectures on translation. It was when I analyzed the translation of Bossa Nova and Jorge Amado's Dona Flor and Her Two Husbands from Portuguese to French and English. I also analyzed the adaptation of a few Irish plays to the cinema. Now it's time to introduce my dearest friend, Stephanie Schwerter. Professor Schwerter taught translation studies and comparative literature at the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales and shared the German-French translation program at the Fondation Maison des Sciences de l'Homme in Paris. But before moving to France in 2008, she lived in Northern Ireland for 6 months.
And 6 years.
6 years.
6 years.
Oh, yes, it's true. 6 years. And worked at the University of Ulster and at Queen's University, Belfast. Her research interest lies in Northern Irish film and fiction, as well as in the intertextual links between Irish, German, and Russian poetry. She's the author of Northern Irish Poetry in Russian Turn, Intertextuality in the Work of Seamus Heaney, Tom Pauling, Matt Buckgudlin, published by Palgrave Macmillan. In addition to numerous peer-reviewed articles and book chapters, she has co-edited Bringing Cultures into Cultural Mediation in Literature, Linguistics and the Arts, 2012, Transmissibility and Cultural Transfer, Dimensions of Translation in the Humanities, 2014. Professor Schwerter also published Division Urbanes, Representations, Mémoire et Réalité, between thriller 2017 and in 2018 between thriller and comedy, divided Belfast in contemporary films. If I start listing the number of lectures she has been giving at different universities around the world, such as Spain, Ireland, German, Russian, Brazil, and many other countries, it should be a very, very long list. Let's listen to her, and you all see how brilliant and dedicated she is. The floor is yours, Professor Schwerter, to tell us your experience in Irish studies, how everything started, your experience on Irish films, how you see the latest Irish films. Are they really Irish on your perspective? The novels you have been reading and how they focus on immigration. After answering these previous questions, you're going to answer my student's question, my researcher's question. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Noelia, for this very nice introduction. So I had the privilege to come to Bahia several times, and especially the privilege to be part of the only St. Patrick's Day parade in the world this year. And I think I must have met some of you there. So Noelia did a good job organizing this event. And when I came back to France, everything was in lockdown. So that means here, I mean, the last 2 weeks in Brazil in March were my last fun weeks, happy weeks before being kind of locked down and overshadowed by the whole virus thing. So we also had the privilege to have Noelia in Valenciennes. She brought a bit of Brazilian touch to the north of France. So the students really very much like this kind of way of teaching and seeing somebody from Brazil, because you see in my university, it's in the north of France, it's a very provincial university, and people might not see and know people from so far away from North America. That was a great experience. So then just to tell you, so how I got into Irish studies, that was a bit naturally, because when I finished my studies in Germany, I wanted to go abroad again, and I got a job at the University of Ulster to teach German. So I was there for 6 years, and during that time, I started to do my PhD, my doctoral research. So at the beginning, I didn't know what should I write, and then people said, "Oh, do something local." And as I was living in Northern Ireland, that was kind of interesting to look at the conflict. I was there from 2002 to 2008, where lots of interesting things were happening. Because there was this kind of peace agreement coming up, and lots of changes were happening in the region. That's why I was writing my PhD on Northern Irish fiction and the troubles, that means the Northern Irish conflict, and how Northern Irish fiction has changed with the changing political situation, which was really interesting for me, because for me, as I was living there, I did lots of fact-finding tours, going around in Belfast, looking at murals, taking pictures, speaking to people, and living with Irish people. So I shared a house with kind of different girls from Northern Ireland. So, and by living there, I got to know a lot about the local population and about how they feel about the conflict and so on. So that was my my first dimension of my studies, so this kind of Northern Irish literature. And when I was done with my PhD, I thought, what should I do now? And then I had a chat with a colleague of mine, and he said, you know what? There are lots of people speaking about the Russian influence about Northern Ireland and the poetry. And I studied Russian. When I was a student, I went to Volgograd, the former Stalingrad, where I stayed for a bit of time to study at the university. And that's how I got into looking at the Russian influence of on Northern Irish poetry. So, and then this, when I was kind of doing my research, I presented this research in Sao Paulo some years ago. I think it might be in 2000, maybe 3 or 4. And whom did I meet? Noelia. That was the first time I met her, and my first trip to Brazil. And for me, it was
in 2002, wasn't it?
Do you think? I don't know. Anyway, long time ago. And anyway, the first time I went to Brazil, I already met Noelia, and which really made me laugh and understand the differences in Brazil, because that was Sao Paulo. I think it was your winter. For me, it was kind of summer, like 20 degrees. For me, it's not cold. And Noelia, she turned up in a fur coat, because she said in Bahia, it's much hotter. And so she was there with a big kind of coat, as if she was coming to Siberia or something. I said, oh, wow, for a Brazilian person, 20 degrees, it's cold. Okay, so so this is kind of how I met Noelia first time. And then we started to cooperate and organizing things together. Noelia came several times to France and to teach, and which is really interesting for the students to see that people from all over the world are interested in Ireland. I mean, very often people say, why are you going to Brazil? Why are people in Brazil interested in Irish studies? And I said, yes, because Ireland is an interesting country and people are studying English, and they choose one dimension of the English-speaking world to get into Irish studies. So that was my second approach, looking at this poetry and then the influence of poetry as well, Irish poetry on German, Russian, and French poetry as well. And then afterwards, of course, as you know, you always need new challenges. I looked at films. When I did my studies on the poetry bit, I went back to division cities and divided cities. So I went back to Belfast, and not anymore in literature, but looking at Belfast through the lens of film, and looking how urban division is presented through film and society. And I kind of just finished a book on Belfast, Beirut, and Berlin, in a kind of a comparative study, how urban division is presented in very different kind of environments. So is there anything which is parallel to Berlin or to Beirut? So you might think, why did I choose these cities? So I mean, I'm German myself, so I know Berlin. And for me, it was very interesting to have a look at German culture and how this relates to Irish culture. And as well, Beirut. So I went several times to Beirut to teach at the University of Saint Joseph. And that's why I got interested in Lebanon and as well the urban division in Beirut. So after this, I mean, this book at the minute kind of under review with the publisher, and my latest research interest is what Noelia just said. It's migration and migrant literature. So, and I think that's what you are most interested in, because I think you are very much interested in the whole aspect of migration and how migrant literature functions. So what I'm doing at the minute, I'm looking at novels and how migration is represented in these novels, because there are very different migrant communities and very different migrant experiences which are shown in literature. So what I think is very interesting, if you look at migration on Ireland, I mean, it's a big topic, because for a long time, Ireland was a country people left, I mean, for centuries. And then only at the beginning of the Celtic Tiger, that was the first time when Ireland experienced waves of immigration. So that means all of a sudden, I mean, when in the 90s, economy was very good because of subsidies from the European Union. And you might have heard about the Celtic Tiger. That means the Celtic boom, the economic boom. And that's why lots of people who came to Ireland tried to find work. And of course, when you have these kind of movements, people start writing about these things or making films. And the thing is, at the beginning, of course, when you have all these problems, you arrive in a country, you would not right away write a novel, because you have to adapt and you have to be, adapt to your new life. And this kind of new situation generated different forms of migrant literature. So first, either we have people who come from a different country and write about their experience in Ireland and making comparisons. Then we have another bit of Irish migrant literature when Irish authors write about the influence of migrants on their society, how thanks to migrants, society gets kind of influence and changes. And then we have people, Irish people, who go abroad and write about their experience as migrants abroad. So you see, you have very different ways of dealing with the Irish experience and the experience of migration. And I think for me, that is very interesting to look at how these different things are kind of coming together. So at the moment, I'm looking at literature, not that much at film, but maybe that's going to be in the future another issue. So would you have any questions, or Noelia, can you?
No, just I haven't planned to ask you this question, but as I was
Go ahead.
watching a film last night on an Irish film, it's called Food Guide to Love. Have you seen this film?
Oh, okay. No, I haven't seen it.
No, you
haven't. Food Guide to Love. No.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, very interesting, very interesting. I'll send you the link because, my students help me a lot. I'm not in that field of technology, but, having the students that I have, I can do miracles. Anyway, so it's an interesting. It was a film produced in 2013 after the situation, the economic was improving, economy in Ireland, it was improving. And this film, I was discussing with Sanyu a few hours ago about this film, and he was comparing the film to another one. It is the Once. I think you have seen Once, haven't you? I think Once it was 2008. I'm not sure about the year, but there are many similarities between the two, mainly concerning the setting. You can see you can see Dublin everywhere. You know, you see, it seems you are walking along the streets of Dublin. It's really interesting to see both.
And I mean, what you were saying about food, I mean, that is an issue you can see in books as well. For instance, this book, Pomegranate Soup by Martha Maron, it's about Persian cooking and how sisters, they open a cafe, a restaurant in Ireland, in the rural part of Ireland. And as well, I mean, in the book Paddy Indian, maybe some of them read the abstract and the extract. People speak about food as well and how Indian food is seen by Irish people. Yeah, so I mean, food is a very interesting cultural aspect of migration as well.
So this is the other question that I was ready to ask you about the title of our live. Could you say a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, this title is basically kind of an intertextual allusion to two books. One is the books I just quoted, Paddy Indian by Matt Vahan, Kaveri Matvahan. She is an Indian woman who came to Ireland with her husband, who was a doctor. And this book is, if ever you have the time, I really recommend you to read it. It's very funny. It's very good fun to read. It's about a boy, a young man who's from a very fancy family in India, from Madras, and then he just has to do his last bit of studies in Ireland to become full doctor. He has to do 1 year at a hospital, and he's from a very wealthy background. And once he arrives in Ireland, he's just another Irish, not Irish, and kind of a foreigner. Some people kind of even say, "Oh, he is a parky," which is very derogatory. So he's seen as somebody not very high in society, and he doesn't understand, only because he is from a different country. Why is he all of a sudden not from this very recognized background anymore? But it's written with lots of humor, and it's really interesting. So the other book is there are two books. There's one book which is called London Irish, Dublin English, by a man who is called Doyle, and he writes a bit about his own experience. I mean, he invents a protagonist who grew up in London, but he is from Irish descent. His parents migrated to London, but he grew up in London, and he wants to go back to Ireland because that's the country of his dreams. But he only knows Ireland from his holidays and from a few stays on his grandfather's farm. And when he's in London, everybody calls him, "Oh, that's the Irishman, Paddy." And when he is in Ireland, everybody says, "Oh, he is the Englishman, Johnny English," or something like this, because he has this very English accent, which he does not want to get rid of. And I mean, he's in between cultures. And it's very interesting. Here again, it's a lot of humor and making fun of himself, that he said, "Oh, I tried to adopt an Irish accent, but it became totally ridiculous because it was a mixture of sound and noises." And then he said, "Okay, no, I'm just going to abandon." Yeah, and it became like finding your identity when you are between cultures.
Yeah.
So that was why I came up with this title, because the two books, I like the two books a lot. But there's another book, it's called London Irish. That's about a young man from Belfast who is coming to London and to set up a crepe stand to sell kind of French crepe in London. And that's about his kind of experience as well, how he is living in London.
You have sent the short story written by Doyle. I have read this short story before, but we read again last week with my students. It's interesting to see the presence of a foreigner, you know, in the beginning. Can you say something about the connecting migration to Doyle's short story?
Yeah, I mean, Doyle, this is what I said, is one of these Irish authors who wrote about migration to show how Irish society changed thanks to people from outside. And I mean, if you look at this protagonist, Larry, yeah, he has a lot of kids, a few daughters, and he's very proud of himself and very assured in his Irishness. And all of a sudden, this other man comes in, and then he has to reconsider himself, what is Irishness. And because when he says, oh yeah, no, Africa, he's not interested in Africa at the beginning, and it's a bit kind of negative about it. And then all his daughters say, oh, that's just stupid, your attitude. And then all of a sudden he has to see that this young man is just very educated and that he is going to be a part of Irish society. So that Irish society is just changing as well. And I like the bit when he says that he put on a nice shirt, a clean shirt, and a nice pair of trousers to be the older man, the citizen, the Irishman, because he was thinking that this young man would turn up in a tracksuit, and then he turns up in a suit. So that is, I like this bit where it's really kind of turning upside down, and he's really shocked about this very beautiful looking man, and there's this quotation when he said, and the wall was looking filthy behind him because he was so spotless, this man. Yeah.
Okay, now let's move to my researchers' question. They are very curious. They have a few questions for you. And let's start with Sanyo's question. Can you read it? His question.
Contribution to support the present. I think he's writing in a newspaper, I forgot the name, which is dedicated to migration as well. So he's kind of very much interested in this topic. And I think by writing about this, he makes people think about the issue and to reconsider their own identity, because migration very often it's about identity as well. Does this answer your question or not?
Okay. Are you happy, Sanyo? Or do you have
happy or not?
Okay,
yeah. That is very good. I saw this film in cinema. That was last year. I saw this in Paris.
Could you please read the questions before answering?
Oh, okay, read it. Okay, sorry. Sanyo, he wrote, Doyle wrote Rosie, which is a film about the housing crisis in Ireland. Do you think his next film is going to be about immigration? Okay, so that's what I said. I like this film a lot, and I'm not so sure if he's going to make a film about migration, because I read his last book, which is called Smile, and that was basically about child abuse. I mean, very different topic, yeah? So I think he's very much into what kind of new topics are at the heart of the society at the minute, and that's why he wrote this book. But I mean, why not? Could be that his next film might be on migration. I don't know, but would be nice. And I'm sure it might have been a very humorous tone as well, because that's very often the topic is tackled.
Any question? I think that they're going to.
Yeah. Any questions? Okay. Hello, Lara, Rebecca. Okay. So I'm reading Lara Rebecca's question. The ways different generations deal with matters of diversity and immigration in Ireland seem to be pretty distinct. What aspect do you think have contributed to these distinctions? You mean why do you think, wait, there was another question. Do you think that the Irish education system plays a role in it? Okay, let's see, there are two questions. So the first one, maybe that's a generational question. Maybe younger people might be more open to migration than older, because they have maybe traveled more and went to different countries. The older generations who travel or migrated, they are gone. They're not anymore in Ireland. So, I mean, maybe that could be a part, because maybe those who are not that kind of confronted with the problem of migration, maybe as well we should make a difference maybe between people in the countryside and in the city, because maybe people in the city are much more exposed to migrants, and they maybe are much more able to understand their life because they meet migrants. Whereas I think in the countryside, there are fewer people, because, I mean, migrants go there where you have work. and not where you just only have sheep and green grass. Yeah. So unless you might find work on a farm.
And
So the
if you
second
also,
question,
okay, go on.
Lara, do you think that the Irish education system played a role in it? I don't know, honestly. Honestly, I have no idea if this helps. I don't know, because honestly, what I feel that in Ireland, North and South languages are not that much present in the syllabus, which would rather be against answering yes to your question, because languages become less and less present at university and at school. And in this way, I'm not so sure if the education system helps a lot. I don't know.
I think Stephanie Lara wants. I'm not sure if it is what she wants to say, but when we are in class, students in class, professors always discuss about this topic. Okay, migration. So they have the opportunity to express the point of view. So maybe I'm not sure if Lara was mentioning this, but I think when you are a professor, professors and students, they are always together dealing with this kind
Maybe,
of thing,
mm,
you know?
maybe
And
if you
this is,
discuss in class.
yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to say if this system does more than other systems, maybe like the French or Brazilian or English system, if the educational system does more to understand migration than other university or educational system in Europe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Okay. Let's the next. Fernando.
okay, Fernando. Okay, guest is coming for dinner reflects Celtic Tiger immigration. Larry considers himself open-minded and not racist, a strong mentality back then. Do you think this mentality is still strong there? Maybe it's changing. I think this book was written a few years ago, and I think now, because of the presence of migrants and that the EU grew after 2004, must definitely have an influence on people's perception of Irish society.
I think he justifies. I ask this because there is a lot of racism in Brazil. Can you read?
Okay, I asked this because there's a kind of racism in Brazil that seems very reminiscent of that one. People here often deny being racist by saying, "I'm not racist. I even have a black friend." Okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, what you're saying, this really echoes the novel. But honestly, I think it very much depends on whom you're talking to, and if you go, for instance, to Dublin or maybe to remote part of the country, you will get maybe a different impression. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the same happens to England. My experience in England made me see different people, different ideas about racism. Some of them were very racist, others they were not. So I think it depends.
I mean, when I was living in Ireland, I was living in Northern Ireland, and I started living there in 2002 before the EU kind of opened up the borders to Eastern European countries. And what I think, they were so much into Catholic and Protestant, and there were so few foreign people that racism was not that much of a big issue in the north. Yeah, because there were not that many migrants. And I think if this came afterwards, yeah, when more and more arrived, yeah, so then oh yeah, they are different from us, and yeah. So I think it depends as well if you go to north or south, and but I think and I hope that the more migrants arrive, the more people will kind of accept and understand, try to understand the others. Because that's why you can see as well lots of books being written about migrants in Ireland, so that the migrants want to find a voice for themselves. And I mean, there's this book, Her Story, which is a collection of short stories of African women. So they write about their life in Africa before they started, living in Ireland, before they arrived in Ireland. And this book has this kind of mission to communicate to, the Irish population. So why did these women come? What kind of background do they have? And what can they do for us in a way, because bringing all their experience, their life experience.
In a multicultural city as Dublin, for example, it's quite impossible to be racist. It's because the everyday life is multicultural. You meet people from different nationalities in every corner you go. So they have to be adapted to the situation.
Okay, so I read Lara Rebecca's. Yeah, it's interesting how there seems to be an attempt of reaffirmation of Irish people's Irishness when they are with immigrant in the immigrant in the short story. Okay, yeah, so you're right, but I mean, what you see, that was the older character in the short story. Remember, Larry, the father, he had to reconsider his Irishness and confirming, and his daughter, they just said, yeah, whatever. I mean, this is just a friend of us, and he is like us, and that was not an issue for them. Yeah. So you see here, I think what we mentioned before, the generation gap as well, because maybe Larry himself, he was not that much confronted to migrants, to other people, while his daughters, they were much more kind of used to seeing people from different backgrounds. Okay, so the next one. Denise Shalia, an Irish rapper born in Zambia, performed in the Irish National Gallery, and she received death threats from people who felt like their Irishness was being challenged. Wow. I didn't know about this, and I think that's just. What are your thoughts on this topic? Wow, I mean, I think it's shocking that, I mean, how can your Irishness or Brazilianness or Germanness be challenged by a rapper who performs music? But I mean, yeah. So this is very. But I mean, I think we just have to see this as an example of a few people. I think we should not generalize and say that is the kind of the general attitude in Ireland. I mean, there were maybe a few people writing about this and they felt their Irishness threatened, but I think we have to be careful not to generalize. Yeah. But I mean, it says, I think it's just, for me, it's very absurd, but maybe because me, I do not live in my country either. So I live in France, I don't live in Germany. So I think when you already don't live in your own country, you have another perception, and maybe you don't see.
You are also an immigrant in Paris.
Yeah, if you want, I'm a migrant as well, and I was a migrant if you want in Ireland as well. So I think then you feel some things a bit kind of strange. Yeah, so that people might be threatened by a rapper. But that's an interesting example. I didn't hear about this.
Mm-hmm. But by the way, have you heard about this girl?
Well, the rapper, no.
The rapper.
No, I don't know her. No. Interesting. Yeah. Hello, Rosalina. In your opinion, how is the topic of migration treated in the context of the Republic and in the context of Northern Ireland? Okay, so in what I said, in Northern Ireland, honestly, I have not really come across migrant writing engaging with Northern Ireland. There is one collection of short stories, and there are a few little allusions to people from East European coming over, but it's not that much of an issue. Because if you look at literature of Northern Ireland, it's more about the still remaining tensions after the conflict and post-conflict Ireland, post-ceasefire Ireland. I think the topics are much more present in the south of Ireland, the whole topic of migration.
Yeah, it's true. Next.
Next question.
Next question? No, no question, Lara.
No question anymore. Do you have a question, Noelia? Oh,
No,
here, Fernando. Thank you. Okay.
Fernando.
You should
Thank
get,
everybody.
yeah, okay. Lara, thank you very much. I definitely have, so Lara, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So I didn't come for nothing. I learned lots of things always with
I think
Noelia.
they are happy. It is another great time together, sharing.
So I hope I might be able to meet some of you in person again when life gets more normal again, and then people might be able to travel again. And maybe you might have the occasion as well to come to my university, so we can try as
Yes,
well.
and
Yeah.
I can't forget that you told me that there is a beautiful sofa waiting for me in Paris.
We're planning, I mean, you can keep this in mind already for all your research. We're planning for next year, but I mean, who knows who's going to be able to travel, to organize a conference in Valenciennes on migration and translation.
Wow,
Maybe you
wonderful.
might be inspired by this. I mean, translation as well in the sense of cultural translation, not only translating from one language to another. So, I mean, we are working at the minute on this call for papers, and of course, I will send it to Noelia, and she sent it to everybody. And it would be just great to have a few people from you over. Hopefully, the borders are open again, and people.
Is it possible another invitation?
Of course, possible at everything. I mean, as long as people are allowed to take planes and come into and travel.
You know, that's my pleasure to share what I know, what I have learned so far with your students. They are really very nice. I kept a good memory of the days I stayed in Valenciennes. So I hope to go back again.
And I think Noelia was very exotic for them, yeah, because she was telling the student, "Oh, I can go to the beach every day," and says, "What? You can go to the beach every day?" For them, it's totally unimaginable. And then she was talking about, I can't remember what story you were speaking about, interpersonal relation, and she started asking people, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend? How long have you been with a boyfriend?" And the students in Valenciennes are rather shy, basically. But then with all these questions, they started speaking, and I started laughing. And then she said,
it was
Noelia,
the warm up. The warm up
yeah.
I used before
And
starting the subject.
I would have never dared asking these questions my students because I know they are very kind of shy. And then Noelia comes in, no problem.
I broke the ice. I broke. Anyway, but today's October 29th. In today's time, we are Halloween's Day. Okay? And I think I will take the opportunity to say that Halloween, one of the most commercially successful holidays in the United States, I'm not sure if you know, it dates back to the ancient Celtic culture. Samhain, a seasonal festival that celebrates the end of harvest season, is a Gaelic tradition that was brought to the United States in the 19th century by Irish immigrants. Ancient Celts viewed the end of harvest and the coming of winter as a magical time when ghostly and ghoulish apparitions from the netherworld choose to spend some of their eternity among the living. In the mid of 1800, Irish immigrants began to come to the United States. Since the Celtic people also lived in Ireland, the people brought the Halloween traditions with them. This included dressing up in costumes, asking their neighbors for food and money, and pulling pranks in the evening on Halloween. Americans started doing the same, which eventually turned into our tradition of trick or treating. However, It wasn't until recently that the treats were a lot more common than the tricks. In 1920s, for example, road pranks had become expensive and costly, especially in major cities. Over time, cities and towns began organizing tame, family oriented Halloween celebrations, which eventually helped control the pranks. Once again, candy companies began releasing special Halloween candies. Our modern idea of trick or treating was born. But we are going to have a special lecture on the subject next week. I have a new lecturer, and he's going to talk about Halloween, the history of Halloween. And I'll be finishing this live listening to the song whose lyric was written by Peter Jones. And it's really about uh, uh, immigrants in America, the way they felt being there, how they missed the family, the friends. I'm not sure if it can put it, the song, Lara. Am I?
Years ago, I came across a most unusual song. It was a recently written song, but written about events in the latter half of the last century. A man called Peter Jones, who lives outside Washington, D.C., over in America, came across a bunch of old letters that had been passed down in his family and had survived throughout the years. And they were written by his, rather to his great-great-grandfather by some of the family back here in Ireland. And it chronicles the family through that very turbulent time at the end of the last century and gives you a real sense of the loss and the separation they felt, the ones who had emigrated. Something like only 1 in 10 that went out to America in those years ever made it back to Ireland again. But the family in Ireland that sent over the letters lived in a place up in County Mayo called Kilkelly. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1860, my dear and loving son John. Your good friend, schoolmaster Paddy McNamara, so good as to write these words down. Your brothers have all gone to find work in England. House is so empty and sad. The crop of potatoes is sorely infected. A third to a half of them died. And your sister Bridget and Patrick O'Donnell going to be married in June.
Okay, I interrupt because I'm not sure if we are allowed to put it in this video, but it's called Kilkelly Island. Kilkelly Island, and I'm not sure if you paid attention to the lyrics. It really says about how sad this separation. So, listening to this bit of song, this piece of song, I'll finishing saying thank you, Stephanie, for coming and join us this afternoon. It was a pleasure having you here, and hope to see you in the future in Brazil or in Paris or in Valenciennes, wherever.
So thank you very much for inviting me to Brazil to make me travel, at least in my mind. Yeah. So
Yes.
and hope to see you very soon. I hope even more in person. I mean, it's great to see people on the internet, but in person it's much better, isn't it?
Yeah. My idea was to ask you to discuss the subject that you have already discussed, walking through the streets of Paris for us to have this this memory of Paris.
Yeah, but now it's not fun walking through the streets of Paris because you have to have a
Yes, I
mask.
know.
And today, that is the last day we were free. From tonight on, we are locked down again. So you have to have a kind of written declaration when you want to go somewhere. So all these romantic notions about the walk in Paris, I think at the moment it is not the case.
Yes, yes, very sad, very sad. But I hope in a few months
It will be
everything is
better again
over.
one day.
We are
Okay.
embrace each other. We are walking along
Yes.
the same
Sense.
the sand, you know, dancing. Remember, dancing. What kind of dancing did you dance?
Salsa.
Salsa. Yes, salsa. So lots to do. We still have life. So hope we can do in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Don't leave because we are going to talk later.
Okay.
Bye.